everyone, good morning and welcome to this update video. I hope that you're doing amazing. It is the start of a brand new week, and so we've got quite a bit to discuss in terms of what is happening and what is ahead for the in terms of the hurricane season for the tropics. So let's get straight to it. We're looking at the satellite imagery, and there is Tropical Storm Beryl in the northwestern Gulf of Mexico headed towards Texas. So it is forecast to re-strengthen into a hurricane before it moves in, maybe by very early tomorrow morning. And it's going to be bringing those hurricane force winds, the storm surge, and the heavy rain, not only to Texas, but potentially other parts of the U.S. We're going to delve into that. In the Caribbean, there is a tropical wave headed west toward the eastern Pacific, and we can see that it's quite active over there. Some areas have been receiving some periods of heavy rain. And elsewhere in the Caribbean, going to the southeast, for the Windward Islands, we can see that there's a bit of activity ahead of another tropical wave, which is going to move in. And it seems as though another is making its way off the African coast. So let's go ahead and talk more, kickstarting things with Beryl. Alright, so we've been talking about Beryl for quite some time. I mean, it's made quite the journey from, emerging as a tropical wave south of the Cabo Verde Islands to a tropical storm, hurricane, major hurricane, and eventually a Cat 5 in the Eastern Caribbean. So Beryl has made quite the journey over the past week, and it is now on its final approach to land because afterwards it is going to be dissipated. So here we're taking a look at the latest forecast graphic for Beryl, and we can see here that the the tropical storm has winds, maximum sustained winds of 65 miles per hour and moving to the northwest to 10 miles per hour. So this is probably the slowest it's moving. I believe it is the slowest ever since it became a named storm. So, being in the Northwest Gulf right now, approaching the Texas coast, it is moving quite slowly-ish, and it's going to that's going to be sort of an advantage for the storm because it is going to be over water for a bit longer so that it can get itself together a bit more, gain some more intensity, and that is the reason NHC is forecasting it to become a hurricane. So it could make landfall as a Cat 1. We can see that bright red highlight indicating the hurricane warning and also a tropical storm warning as well for Texas. So the entirety of the Texas coast will be feeling impacts in one way or another from Beryl as it's going to be making its way in. And then afterwards, it's going to quickly weaken as we head into tomorrow evening. It is forecast to be downgraded back to a tropical storm, then a depression, and then a post-tropical cyclone, maybe as it's passing through northern Arkansas. Eventually, it's likely to make its way over parts of eastern Canada as we head into the end of the week. So Beryl has been around for quite some time, and it is not over just yet. However, this is the final land approach it is going to be making because it is going to become post-tropical and eventually dissipate, as I said. So that is what is happening with Beryl. Here is a close look at her on satellite imagery. We can see it churning, and it kind of really lost some momentum since it crossed the Yucatan Peninsula. So at the time when it made landfall and moved through like that, ripped it apart, coupled with the wind shear, as well as some dry air wrapping into it. So those are all unfavorable conditions which caused it to weaken, and that is why it is so weak right now compared to what it was in the Caribbean. So Beryl is approaching the Texas coast again, and it is going to be bringing those impacts. They have already started. We can see those outer bands of rain and thunderstorms approaching, and conditions will only continue to deteriorate as we head into later today, and eventually, maybe as I said, very early tomorrow morning when landfall is likely in Texas. And landfall, that is when the eye or the center of Beryl moves onshore. All right, but now we're switching to the Caribbean. What is going on here? We can see again there is that tropical wave headed to the eastern Pacific, and the rainfall has been shifting because yesterday we saw it being more in the vicinity of Jamaica. Now it's shifted further west, so there's a lot of showers and thunderstorms. So for parts of Belize, there's been quite a bit of rainfall. Even the islands of San Andres, Providencia, can let me know what's been happening there, but we can see that there's definitely some activity. But for other areas such as much of Jamaica, Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, through much of the Lesser Antilles and the ABC Islands, even the Turks and Caicos, parts of the Bahamas, much not really happening well as we're heading to the afternoon hours today. But as I said, for the southeastern islands such as near Trinidad, Tobago, Grenada, the Grenadines, we can see that little cluster of all of that convection associated with a tropical wave that is approaching from the east. So that is what we have going on, guys. And there is something else out there. There is going to be a period of nothingness essentially in the Atlantic. So after Beryl dissipates, maybe by the end of this week or very early next week, we're not going to be seeing a whole lot of activity in the Atlantic for now. And that is something typical for the month of July. So July is usually not very, very active. The most active the most active period in the hurricane season is typically August through October. So several weeks of, back-to-back activity. And, just another reference of how active things can quickly become. Last year, in the space of 2 days, 5 named storms developed. So that is the potential out there for us to see, hyperactivity once the conditions are highly conducive. But for now, we're going to have these massive dust plumes coming off of Africa, making their way to the Caribbean. Matter of fact, a pretty significant one is headed to the region for this week. Let's go ahead and look at the forecast. So here we're taking a look at the forecast. So the different brown shadings indicate the dust, and the darker those browns are, the higher the concentration of dust. And even right now, some of us are experiencing those hazy skies, maybe a bit of eye and skin irritation due to it as well. So that is one of the health hazards, along with, breathing issues. And we're going to have a denser plume heading in. So as we're going to be heading into tomorrow and Tuesday, for the Lesser Antilles, expect a denser dust plume to be moving by. And then eventually, as we head to the midweek and later in the week, go into Thursday, other areas such as the ABC Islands, Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, Haiti and the Dominican Republic, Jamaica, Cuba, and even up to the parts of the southern Bahamas, Turks and Caicos will experience that denser dust coverage as well. So what does the dust do? Well, it helps out to limit tropical development. So it induces a stable environment. Meanwhile, tropical waves out there coming off, they need an unstable environment. They need atmospheric instability to really get those thunderstorms going. So with plentiful dust out there, we're not going to be seeing a whole lot of that happening. So a lot of the tropical waves, even though they may seem a little bit robust coming off of Africa, once there is a lot of dust ahead, we're going to see them fall apart and essentially be vacant of any significant convection. So that is something kind of typical for the month of July, and things ramp up later in the month and headed towards August. So, that is going to be the reason for that lull period. And even the models agree on this. They're not showing any source of development coming from the main development region for maybe the next week and a half or so. And I mean, that is super great news. And we definitely need it, especially the Caribbean areas such as Grenada, Caracas, especially Petite Martinique, Jamaica, other areas that have been impacted by Hurricane Beryl when it was a hurricane and it moved through and caused its absolutely devastating impact. So we need the time to recuperate, and not just that, but to prepare for what's ahead. Beryl was the first Category 5 hurricane ever so early in the hurricane season for the North Atlantic basin. It made history. The point is, there is going to be a lot more activity like Beryl. The fact that we're going to be heading into that active period is suggesting that we could see back-to-back hurricanes like Beryl affecting the Caribbean. So yes, we need the time period to recuperate for the islands that have been significantly affected, but we also should take the time to do the necessary preparations. And it is pretty unsettling. However, we just have to do what we must. And earlier on, before the season even started, I've been talking about it. Other, personnel have been talking about it as well. The fact that the hurricane season could be a very historic one, could be one of the most active or the most active in history. And here we have it already. We have 3 named storms: Alberto, Beryl, Chris, and Beryl was a record maker, and it's still continuing its journey to land. So it is going to get more active. This is the smoke to the fire. The real thing is going to burn as we head into the next several weeks. So again, we have this lull period coming up. Models aren't showing anything in the realm of development to say, yes, we're going to have another storm or hurricane very soon. No, that is not expected for the short term. However, things tend to change very quickly, and I'm here to keep you posted so that you're never caught off guard. So that is the purpose of my channel, and I will continue to do my best to keep you updated. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys in this updates video, and I do hope you found it to be very informative. However, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments, and I'll get to you once I have the chance to do so. And remember to always be weatherwise.